Welcome back, Deep Divers. Today we're going to journey back in time.
To 6th century BCE India.
Right. To explore the rise of, you guessed it,
Buddhism.
Buddhism, exactly.
Yeah.
Now, if you're one of those awesome folks prepping for the UPSC exam.
Oh, this deep dive is practically made for you.
Yeah. Especially that GS1 ancient history section, on Buddhism's origins and all those key ideas. But hey.
Even if you're just a history buff,
Yeah.
You're in for a treat.
Big time. We're going to unearth some really cool facts about, well, the life of the Buddha.
His teachings, of course.
And really that whole historical context that made Buddhism such a game changer.
You see, 6th century BC India, it was like this melting pot of change.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It was the Vedic period, but
Things weren't exactly peachy keen.
not exactly, no. Think elaborate rituals, strict social hierarchies.
Oh, wow.
And this rising tide of discontent,
So it was like the perfect storm for a new spiritual movement to kind of pop up.
Exactly. People were yearning for something different, something more, the Vedic rituals with all those expensive sacrifices and complex mantras.
Oh, yeah.
They felt out of touch.
Yeah, I can see that.
Just imagine having to offer these extravagant sacrifices that only the wealthy could afford, or trying to decipher confusing mantras that left you feeling more lost than enlightened.
Yeah, no thanks.
Right.
Sounds like people were really craving a more accessible, relatable path.
You got it. And there was also this simmering tension between, the Brahmins.
Those are the folks with all the religious authority, right?
Yeah, and the other social classes.
I'll see.
So people were starting to question the status quo,
Right.
Searching for meaning
Yeah,
beyond that existing framework.
I get you.
And this desire for change, it
Right.
created this fertile ground for new movements to sprout up.
Uh-huh.
And Buddhism, with its emphasis on equality and personal transformation,
Yeah.
it offered a pretty compelling alternative.
Okay, so this is where Siddhartha Gautama, the Buddha, enters the scene.
Mm-hmm.
His life story it's like something out of a movie.
Oh, totally.
A prince born into luxury, completely shielded from suffering.
And then
He has these 4 life-altering encounters.
those 4 encounters, as they're called, they're pivotal, really, to understanding Buddhism. Imagine this young prince, totally sheltered, encountering an old man, a sick person, a dead body, and finally, an ascetic.
Whoa, talk about a reality check.
Right.
Makes you wonder how he reacted to all that.
Well, for Siddhartha, it was an awakening.
Yeah.
I mean, these encounters, they just shattered his sheltered worldview
Yeah.
and ignited this profound question: why is there suffering, and how can we escape it?
Wow.
That right there is the heart of Buddhist philosophy.
So instead of just going back to his, life of luxury, he chooses to confront this question head on.
Oh, absolutely. This is where the story takes a dramatic turn. Siddhartha renounces his princely life.
Can you imagine?
I know, right? The shockwaves.
I mean, leaving everything behind like that, especially, a life of privilege,
It really says something
Yeah.
about his dedication.
to finding truth.
Yeah, to truth.
So what happened next?
Well, his relentless search, it ultimately led him to the Bodhi tree.
Okay.
After years of intense seeking, he sits beneath this tree, determined to meditate until he finds the truth. And on the 49th day,
It happens.
it happens. He achieves this state of profound awakening known as nirvana.
Okay, so we've all heard of nirvana, but what does it actually mean? It's not just about chilling under a tree, right?
Nirvana is often misunderstood.
Yeah.
It's not about escaping the world or achieving, blissful oblivion.
Mm-hmm.
It's about transcending suffering by uprooting its very cause, those cravings and attachments we talked about earlier.
Oh, right.
It's about seeing reality as it is,
Wow.
free from delusion. And this is the moment Siddhartha truly becomes the Buddha, the awakened one.
So he finds this profound truth, this state of enlightenment. What does he do next?
Driven by compassion, the Buddha sets out to share his newfound wisdom.
Okay.
His first sermon takes place at Sarnath,
Gotcha.
which becomes this major pilgrimage site for Buddhists.
I can see why.
Picture yourself there, among the first disciples, hearing these revolutionary ideas for the first time.
I'd be blown away.
Right. This sermon, known as the Dharmachakra Pravartana, it marks the setting in motion of the wheel of Dharma. Dharma, meaning the teachings, the truth, the way things are.
So the stage is set. The Buddha has found enlightenment, and he's ready to share his teachings.
It's ready.
But what exactly are these teachings? What's at the heart of Buddhism?
At Buddhism's core are the Four Noble Truths. Think of them as a diagnosis and prescription for the human condition.
Okay, I'm hooked. Tell me more about these Four Noble Truths.
All right, so the first noble truth,
Yeah.
it acknowledges the reality of suffering, or dukkha in Pali. We all experience it, in various forms, whether it's physical pain, emotional distress, disappointment, or loss.
Yeah.
It's simply acknowledging a fundamental truth of existence.
Right.
The second noble truth, it delves into the cause of suffering, attributing it to craving, attachment, and ignorance.
Okay.
Essentially clinging to things that are impermanent and constantly changing.
That makes sense.
Right.
We cling to things, to people, to ideas, and when they change or disappear.
We suffer.
Yeah.
Exactly. But here's the good news. The third noble truth offers hope. It states that suffering can end.
Wait, really?
Yeah.
How do we escape suffering?
That's where the fourth noble truth comes in. It reveals the path to liberation, the way to end suffering. That path is the Noble Eightfold Path.
Okay, now you've got to explain this eightfold path. It sounds like a spiritual checklist.
In a way, it is, but
Yeah.
it's not about checking boxes.
Yeah.
It's about cultivating wisdom, ethical conduct, and mental discipline. It's a practical guide to living a more mindful and intentional life.
So it's about taking concrete steps, not just, pondering abstract ideas.
Absolutely. The Eightfold Path encompasses, understanding, thought, speech, action, livelihood, effort, mindfulness, and concentration.
Wow, that's a lot.
It's about aligning your thoughts, words, and actions with truth and compassion.
That sounds pretty comprehensive. Is the goal to achieve perfection?
Not at all. It's about ongoing practice,
Okay.
self-reflection, and a willingness to learn and grow.
Yeah.
The Eightfold Path is about striving to live a life that is skillful, kind, and ultimately free from suffering.
Wow, we've covered so much already. From the social unrest of 6th century BCE India to Siddhartha Gautama's transformation into the Buddha to the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path,
Yeah.
my head is spinning a little.
It's a lot to take in, but it's just the beginning of our exploration of Buddhism.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there's a whole universe of Buddhist philosophy to uncover,
Like what?
including concepts like karma, rebirth, and the idea of non-self, or anatta.
Okay, we've definitely laid a solid foundation here for understanding, well, the basics of Buddhism, especially for anyone tackling that UPSC exam.
Yeah, you've got the key figures, the
Yeah.
core teachings, the historical context.
But even if exams aren't your thing,
Yeah.
we've just scratched the surface of these fascinating ideas.
Stick with us as we continue our deep dive into the captivating world of Buddhism. You won't want to miss what's coming next. All right, so let's dive into some of those more intriguing concepts you mentioned earlier. Karma, rebirth, and this idea of non-self.
Yeah, they always kind of mystified me.
I know, right? They seem a bit mysterious at first, but they're actually quite insightful once you unpack them a little.
Okay, let's unpack them.
Okay, let's start with karma.
Right.
In Buddhism, karma isn't about some cosmic reward and punishment system like you might see in some interpretations.
All right.
It's more like a law of cause and effect
Yeah.
applied to our actions.
Right.
Every action we take.
Whether mental, verbal, or physical, it creates this ripple effect, a potential consequence.
So it's not about fate or destiny, but about understanding that our choices have consequences.
Precisely. And this ties into the concept of rebirth. Buddhism views life as a continuous cycle of birth, death, and rebirth.
Okay.
Now, it's important to note that rebirth in Buddhism isn't about a soul transmigrating into a new body.
Oh, okay.
It's more like a stream of consciousness,
Okay.
carrying the imprint of our actions, our karma, forward.
That makes it much clearer. So it's not about a literal reincarnation of a self,
Right.
but about the continuation of karmic energy.
Exactly.
Okay, so what about this non-self idea? It sounds a bit paradoxical.
Yeah.
There's no self.
Right.
Then who's experiencing all this karma and rebirth?
That's a question that has puzzled many. The concept of anatta, non-self, it challenges our usual notion of a fixed, unchanging me.
Buddhism suggests that what we perceive as ourself is actually a collection of ever-changing physical and mental processes.
Okay.
There's no permanent entity at the core.
So we're more like a constantly evolving process
Yes.
rather than a static
Yeah.
thing. It almost sounds like, I don't know, like a river,
Mm-hmm.
constantly flowing and changing, but we perceive it as this fixed entity.
That's a great analogy. And clinging to this idea of a fixed self is actually a major source of suffering.
Oh, how so?
When we identify with our thoughts, emotions, and experiences as me, we become attached to them.
Okay.
And that leads to, well, disappointment, frustration,
Yeah.
and a sense of being trapped in those experiences.
I can see that. I'm starting to understand how letting go of that rigid sense of self could be liberating.
Yeah.
Even though it's a difficult concept to grasp,
It's definitely a profound shift in perspective, and it lies at the heart of Buddhist practice. The goal is to see through the illusion of self, to recognize the impermanence and interconnectedness of all things.
And this brings us back to nirvana, right?
Yes. Nirvana isn't some far-off heavenly realm. It's a state of liberation that arises from fully realizing non-self, from extinguishing the flames of craving and attachment that fuel suffering.
So it's not about escaping life, but about experiencing it in a more awakened, liberated way.
Exactly.
But how did these ideas, born in ancient India, spread across the globe?
Buddhism's journey beyond India is a fascinating tale of emperors, trade routes, and the enduring power of ideas. One key figure in the spread was Emperor Ashoka, who ruled a vast empire in the 3rd century BCE.
The Ashoka, yeah. I remember studying him in my history classes. Wasn't he a powerful ruler who converted to Buddhism?
Yes. Ashoka's conversion was a turning point for Buddhism. He actively promoted its teachings, sending missionaries far and wide,
Wow.
even inscribing Buddhist principles on pillars throughout his empire.
So he saw Buddhism as more than just a personal belief system. He saw it as a force for positive change in society.
Absolutely. He believed Buddhism could foster peace and harmony, and his patronage played a significant role in its spread. But it wasn't just about royal support.
What else?
Trade routes like the Silk Road,
Oh, yeah.
they were instrumental in disseminating Buddhist ideas.
That makes sense. The Silk Road connected vast regions, allowing for the exchange of not just goods, but also ideas and cultures.
Exactly. Merchants, travelers, and monks carried Buddhist teachings along with their wares, planting seeds of wisdom in new lands.
I like that.
And as Buddhism spread, it adapted and evolved, giving rise to diverse schools and traditions.
So it's not a monolithic religion,
No.
but rather a rich tapestry of interpretations and practices.
Yes.
All stemming from those core teachings of the Buddha.
Precisely. From Theravada Buddhism in Southeast Asia to Mahayana Buddhism in East Asia and Vajrayana Buddhism in Tibet, each branch has its own unique character while remaining rooted in those fundamental principles of the Buddha's teachings.
We've covered a lot of ground today, from the social climate of ancient India to the core tenets of Buddhist philosophy to the spread of Buddhism across continents. For our listeners preparing for the UPSC exam, we've provided a solid overview of Buddhism's origins, key figures, and essential concepts.
Yeah, you now have a strong framework for understanding Buddhism's place in Indian history and its philosophical depth.
But even if you're not facing an exam, this exploration offers valuable insights into the human condition, the nature of suffering, and the path to a more meaningful life.
It's a journey worth taking, whether you're seeking knowledge for an exam or simply for personal growth and understanding.
We've really journeyed through the heart of Buddhist philosophy today, from the Four Noble Truths to the Eightfold Path, and even explored some mind-bending concepts like karma, rebirth, and non-self.
Yeah, and as we wrap up this deep dive, I think it's fascinating to consider how Buddhism, even though it originated centuries ago, still speaks to us today.
Yeah, it's not just ancient history.
Yeah. No.
There's a timeless quality to these teachings that just, continues to resonate.
Exactly. Think about it. The Buddha, he addressed social issues of his time head on. He challenged the rigid caste system that was prevalent in India, emphasizing the inherent equality of all beings, regardless of their social standing.
That's pretty revolutionary for that era.
It was a radical shift in perspective. The Buddha welcomed people from all walks of life into his Sangha, the community of monks and nuns,
Oh, okay.
promoting a sense of inclusivity that really challenged the social norms of the time.
So it wasn't just about personal enlightenment. It had a social dimension as well.
Absolutely. Buddhism wasn't just a set of beliefs, it was a way of life, a movement for social change.
Makes you wonder what a society would look like if it truly embraced those, principles of equality and compassion.
It's a question worth pondering.
Yeah.
And this emphasis on ethical conduct, it extended beyond social interactions. The Buddha also taught about right livelihood, encouraging his followers to engage in occupations that didn't cause harm to others.
So he was concerned with the ethical implications of our actions, not just in our personal lives, but also in our work and how we make a living.
Precisely. It's about recognizing the interconnectedness of all things and striving to live in a way that minimizes suffering and promotes harmony.
This deep dive has definitely given our UPSC aspirants a solid foundation for understanding Buddhism's role in Indian history, its philosophical depth, and its impact on society. You've got the key figures, the core teachings, and the historical context.
It's a wealth of knowledge to draw from when tackling those GS1 ancient history questions. But remember, the exam isn't just about rote memorization. It's about connecting the dots, analyzing events, and understanding the ripple effects of ideas across time.
And for everyone else listening, whether you're facing an exam or simply seeking to expand your understanding of the world, I think we can all agree that Buddhism offers, valuable insights into the human condition, the nature of suffering, and the path to a more meaningful life.
It encourages us to live more mindfully, to cultivate compassion, and to find peace amidst the complexities of life.
Yeah.
And who knows, maybe by incorporating even one principle from the Eightfold Path, like mindful speech or right action, we can make a positive difference in our own lives and in the world around us.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of Buddhism. We hope you found it, enlightening and engaging. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep those minds engaged.